All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. Betsperts Golf here for our first look of the 2024 U.S. Open, and one that we are very excited about, coming off of a fantastic event, as always, at Muirfield Village, the Memorial. Not a shockingly unexpected result at the end of the day. Another Scottie Scheffler win, his fifth of the season. A couple of fantastic stats. These are probably Justin Ray stats. I've seen them floating around. I feel like anytime there's a real good historical understanding of what we just saw, it comes from Justin Ray. If not, Justin deserves his flowers anyway. Should be following him. First time, like I'm older. This is the first time in my lifetime that someone's won 5 times before the U.S. Open. Pretty impressive. You got to go back to 1962. It's long before both Ron and I were around to find someone that won 5 times before the U.S. Open, and one of those was a major. And this is what we're seeing with Scottie Scheffler right now. Really impressive as we head into the third major of the season. Pinehurst, number 2. My man Ron Kloss here, as always. PGA Splits 101, a fantastic, extensive preview up on the site already over at Betsperts Golf. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, this is we're in Scottie Scheffler's world here, and like 5 wins in the last 3 months, like 13 strokes on approach he gained. Just going back looking over the data, and it's just crazy stuff. Like he can do it any way he wants to right now. And as we get into this course, like you're going to hear this all week, but there's just so many parts of Pinehurst, whether it's the mental game, his short game, just, his automatic ability to find the fairway, kind of just do whatever he wants on the courses. It's his tournament to lose. I know we've seen the odds already. I don't know what are they at now, under 300. Or 3-1, I should say. But it's just, it's you have a conundrum with who you bet, and it's either Scottie or you're basically, taking 5 or 6 guys and trying to piece something together.
Yeah, tough decision to make for sure. I mean, and I guess the holes that will attempted to be poked in Scottie this week by someone trying to make a case for someone else is, how he wasn't perfect yesterday. But that's kind of the whole point, right? Is like he wasn't perfect. Memorial was a demanding ask, especially on Sunday, and that's actually been I think a pretty actionable trend over the last couple of years since the renovation. Those Sunday setups have been pretty difficult. I was able to take advantage of that through underdog and some, round scores and some stuff like that. There was some definitely, advantages in betting some overs on Sunday at Memorial. But that's the point, right? Scottie didn't have his best. He wasn't completely dialed in. He wasn't pin seeking while everyone else is struggling, but he still is just head and shoulders above everyone else. When the conditions are hardest, he could still just kind of hang in a different way. Now, look, there were only 6 guys, I think, yesterday that played under par. Scottie wasn't one of them. But again, he's still down the stretch, put himself in position when he needed to. Colin was one of them, surprisingly. That has not been Colin's MO on Sundays this season. But, a great event to roll into, just another strong test. And Pinehurst, number 2, is an absolute peach of a golf course. And I am really excited about it. Ron does a great job in his preview of kind of pointing this out. The ask that a U.S. Open, and I guess now a PGA Championship course are demanding, are very similar year in and year out. And they're good tests of golf. They're where we should be testing, I guess, and how we should be looking to crown our major championship golfers. Pinehurst number 2 is very different. You need a ton of length. And look, let's not mix this up, Ron. This is a big 7,500 yard par 70. You need length here. But typically we have the protection often is really thick, lush rough. You got to be long and straight and navigate that and have kind of, the rest of your game. But man, if you don't have length and are hitting straight off the tee, you're kind of dead out of the water here. Now, we don't have rough at Pinehurst number 2 anymore. At the latest renovation, peeled all of that off the course. We got some good buzzwords this week. We have sandy waste areas. We got pine straw. We got wiregrass. Give us your thoughts here after doing a pretty big homework assignment on Pinehurst number 2.
Yeah, so like you said, no lush green grass, no, 5 inches of club tangling, penal rough. Fairways are wide. Now we saw a little bit of this, last year at LA Country Club, but that was a little bit of a
Mhm.
different course. But yeah, going back to all the other, Torrey Pines, this is not any of those types of courses where, you could literally, check, maybe 80% of the field, just, they have no chance of winning. This week, it's, you could win so many different ways. And that's one of the things Bill Core, who, helped the restoration with Ben Crenshaw, and he talked about it, is, you could try to play, a Bombers game and kind of play, take it aerially to the greens, or you could, be a shorter hitter. You could play back more. Yes, you're going to have longer irons, but you could use more of the ground game. Because this course, is going to play pretty fast and firm, and so there's just many different ways you could, move up the leaderboard here. And so, kind of, you throw in all the sandy waste areas, and you have the wire grass, and, there's going to be some luck involved, and there's going to be some good breaks and some bad breaks, and, how players can respond to that mentally, where, you may not get rewarded for a good shot. And it's just reading about these greens and the complexes, and just, there's so many different ways. And we saw that in 2014 when Martin Kamer is, he mostly used putter off the green, but, there's so many different ways you could try to scramble here. And so, players who are creative, players who, feel comfortable from very tight lies, those are the guys who, among other things, that you really want to target this week.
Yeah, that's another one of the buzzwords. Is you have these turtleback greens, upside down saucers. They are, I think, a good way to think of them is it's not that they're designed to be extremely difficult to putt on. They are designed in a way that repels approach shots, especially those coming from 175 plus, which is the plurality of where we're going to have approach shots this week. Because even though you have this length, to avoid the waist area that's behind Ron, you can get a sense of what, if you haven't seen any flyovers or anything, that's what we're talking about, these little, bunches of wire grass in these sandy waste areas. And some of that could be really, those are not bunkers, similar to what you had at LACC, some other places like that. When we get into Carolinas and Congaree and some other places, like these are just sandy waste areas. You can ground your club. And some of them might just be like really thick and padded down. It's going to be some interesting flyer lies. You want to avoid that. So you're going to see some guys clubbing down, hoping that these fairways are running firm and fast and they can kind of run some stuff up there. You mentioned Martin Keimer and how he approached this last time we were here in 2014. But 3 guys under par. Keimer ran away, which is very interesting. Again, he was in form at the time. He had won the Players that year, was playing really good golf. But again, even when he missed, there was a lot. He had the kind of the yips on a short game, and he kind of just took the wedge out of his hand and just, Texas putter, Texas wedge, and putted himself around here. So I'd be interested to see if you see a lot of that when guys are missing. So the ability to scramble here, the scrambling is short grass because, again, we have no thick collar, no thick, rough apron to kind of catch these balls and keep things up this week. So it's going to be a real test. I think scoring is going to be very, very difficult, especially if we get any winds picking up. I think they want this to be a firm test as well, as it should be. So very, very excited to watch the golf this week. It is going to be absolutely fantastic. You want to check out Ron's preview? You want to check out Ron's preview. I'm telling you, it is the best that you could possibly have out there. There's just nothing better, promise. Right here, the feature article here on our sites. Go over to Betsperts Golf, check it out. It is extensive. Again, you're going to get some, U.S. Open course history. Again, you're going to get more course history at Pinehurst #2 than you could possibly imagine or even want. It is thorough and fantastic, especially if you are a golf nerd and you're watching a golf show at 8 a.m. Central Time on a Monday morning. You're probably one of us in the golf nerd. So very, very good stuff here from Ron. If you want to get even more into the literal weeds of what to expect at Pinehurst 2, it is fantastic. So model building time, Ron. Let's look at the odds. We'll jump back. We'll start there because I think that's the interesting discussion. Courtesy of our friends over at the Lines, getting the ability to look at multiple books here. We have shrunk down already at the top. There were some 4s on Scotty over the weekend. Those as expected, are gone, especially thinking, hey, if he wins a Memorial, that 4 is not coming back. And we're pretty close to being in a spot where 3 is not coming back in a few spots. DraftKings, Caesars already under 3. And look, I get it. That's really uncomfortable for some people to do. And it's uncomfortable for me to do. The typical way that I unit size out outrights to take back enough to make that happen. That's a sizable bet. I just feel like it is a really, you are really just kind of against the grain, almost intentionally. It feels like you are trying to be contrarian to be contrarian. You want to, pick the absolutes, just dark horse out of the pile to go against the grain, because you can't possibly imagine betting on someone to win a golf tournament that is this short. But Ron and I both already did. We took the 4s over the weekend. It's kind of, for me, it's a single bullet, just transparency. It's Scotty. The rest of the bets will be without Scotty markets, maybe without the top 4 markets, whatever those tend to look like here this week. Happy that I got the 4. I know Ron is as well, because we thought this was going to happen. This is why we pushed out the 4 to subscribers this weekend. Ron messaged me on the side like, hey, do you think that 4 gets any longer? I'm like, no, I think we're, he's going to, unless he absolutely collapses at Memorial. Here we are. Talk to me about your thought process on shooting at the 4, Ron.
Yeah, you just get to a point where it's just like, you see Scotty, you see how he matches up with the course, you see his form, you see what he did at Memorial, and it's just like, I've been chasing everybody else all year, and so it's like at some point you just kind of give in, you just throw your hands up, and we'll see what happens this week. I know there is some value, as Scotty's the only one in single digits, it looks like. So, and you got some interesting guys, and when you're trying to think of that type of profile of a player you want this week, I'll just throw out, you see a guy like Cam Smith, down there at 40 to 1. That's great value in my opinion. And so yeah, you're kind of torn both ways. I would love to, hey, let's build a card with Cam Smith, and I see Hideki at 55, and of course everybody knows how great his short game is, and I think he fits well here. And so yeah, that's a choice you have to make, and but there is some value on the board, I will say that.
Yeah, those are interesting names. I bet Hideki in the without Scotty market. I think that's interesting. Cam Smith went like double at some point yesterday. Live Houston, which I'm not sure is a fantastic test for U.S. Open qualifiers, but maybe like yeah, I'm just not a Cam Smith guy, and the thoughts of him spraying and finding, again, I know it's a guy that has magic beans, but I understand why people will be enamored, because again, short game is going to massively make a difference this week. You're going to have to figure out either those long off the green putts, something that Bryson's tremendous at, or you're going to have to be just insanely dialed in tee to green, hitting, just kind of lapping the field from a greens and reg standpoint, and making some of those putts. So interesting odd board, as you said, like Scotty's by himself, Rory, Xander, Morikawa next there. Morikawa, obviously terrific form. You get a spot where, all right, accuracy, I need to be in the fairway. I need long irons and stuff. I understand the Morikawa play here as well. Bryson, Hovland. Look, Hovland ejected on Saturday. A couple of water balls, seems like it hit something that got to him mentally. The rest of it, tee to green, was fantastic. And on Thursday and Friday, as someone who was sweating and watching a lot of Victor from on outright on him last week, he was really close. I don't think like he was poor from a strokes game putting standpoint, but he gave himself a lot of birdie looks that he like just missed, burned edges, and was really close to putting himself in a really good spot heading into Saturday before the ejection, and just wasn't good enough. But feel like Victor in general is back, and I feel really, really good about that. And then you get down a little bit, Oberg, Koepka, Rahm. I mean, Rahm at 33, people would be like just tripping over themselves to bet. Obviously, if you have not seen, he withdrew allegedly cut between his toes. Sounds really painful. I don't know if you saw the crowds at Live Houston. I think this is, I'm not saying that it wasn't a cut between his toes, but I think he's thinking, these sons of bitches are over at Memorial. That's my place. I'm here at Live Houston with this music blaring, playing in front of 15 people in 110-degree heat for what? For Legion 13? I think he was like, nah, I'm out of here. So very interesting with Rom. Obviously has not won yet on Live. Just wild to see 33s bigger than 30 next to Rom. You mentioned Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, Tommy Fleetwood feels like a nice Tommy course. Another maybe without Scotty look as we kind of go down the board here into the 50 section. Again, you're going to see bigger numbers next to names that we're not used to seeing. So you have to make a decision. Are you trying to build a betting card full of just really big numbers next to really good golfers, or are you trying to pick the winner and just seeing like, hey, look, I'm going to take a little bit less if I win this week, or just being aggressive and see? Like, again, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. It's 3-1. It's 156 people in this field. It's going to be an interesting week to see how this kind of plays out. So yeah, thanks to our friends over at the Lines. You can check this out. Nice little spot to shop a little bit. All right, we're doing things a little different this week, Ron. I built a model, and if you want to get access to this is our rabbit hole. This is officially licensed PGA Tour data that we have put into one spot for you and allowed you to filter, slice, and dice in any way, shape, or form. You could put conditions and filters that you can't do anywhere else. Access to statistics from the PGA Tour that you will not be able to model or do anything else similar to this anywhere else on the interwebs. And we think it is a great way to build a betting card, to build out a DFS player pool, all those things. So you can go over to our sites here. I'll show you too. Lots of different ways. We've a handful of partners, Underdog, Vivid Picks, Better. Reach out to us on Twitter via DM if you have any questions on how to access some of this. You can see it here on the site if you want more information, if you're seeing this for the first time. And like, how can I get my hands on the rabbit hole? How can I read Ron's preview for cheap? These are the ways to do it. Again, reach out directly at Betsperts Golf on Twitter. We can help you out. It's a super cheap. Just join us for a month. Give us a try. I think you'll have some fun here messing around with the rabbit hole. I built out a model, and I want to go through it a little bit and get your thoughts on what it spit out, other ways for us to look at some of this data. We can go back and show people how to do it and how we land there. But here is my model built late last night for Pinehurst number 2. Not a shocking top 3. Scotty Scheffler at the top, Rory second, Xander third. That is in line with the current betting board. Ludwig is fourth here. Again, just a lot of tee to green stuff for different rounds. Corey Connors fifth. Again, ball striking stuff. Corey Connors is typically happens. We have Corey Connors, Tony Finau, Doug Gim, modeling darlings when you're looking at a lot of tee to green stuff or ball striking in particular. Hovland 6, Hatton 7, Siwoo Kim 8, Russell Henley 9, Colin Morikawa 10. You're seeing getting some rewards here for the next kind of few guys from like an accuracy standpoint. So I'm going to show you in the back end. Here's what we did. So the first category that I had here is strokes gained tee to green. Looking at the last 2 years in difficult to very difficult conditions on long and very long golf courses. It's kind of an anchor stat that we have done fairly often in these majors. Here's that first category. We got a handful of guys that don't qualify based off of their round sample, but here you go. This is kind of the anchor and part of why Corey Connors is playing so well. Again, Scotty, Rory, Xander at the top there, Ron. Thoughts on trying to get some anchor stats on difficult golf courses?
So this week is obviously, we all know how difficult this course is. It played, over 3 strokes. I think it was like plus 308 per round, 2014. So yeah, I'm looking at, and again, let me say this off the top: we have every player in the field. So I know we had some additions this morning: Adam Scott, Robert McIntyre, Sergio Garcia gets in. If you haven't heard that yet, so yeah, all those players are loaded into the rabbit hole. So you have a complete field in there. But yeah, I'm definitely focusing on, and many of the stats I'm looking at them through the lens when scoring is difficult. So I don't think, if you're taking, TPC Craig Ranch and all these other easy courses you're adding, I just don't think those are going to help you this week. I think I will take, just in general, just to see current form. Like I like to kind of go back last 12 rounds, the last 3 months, the last 6 months. And I'll look at some of those total and tee to green. But like you said, this is a week you want to look at difficult scoring conditions. How do players perform on long courses? And so, yeah, just how you did it, where you're kind of combining difficult and long together, because, whether you're looking at past US Open tracks, other majors, those are typically long, difficult courses. And so, we do have a filter where you can also just look at majors. And you could go all the way back to 2015 with that. So a lot of different ways you could go through this. Yeah, love what you did so far. Obviously, we have a very strong field. And yeah, those are kind of the big picture ones that I'm definitely, whether you combine a couple of them together, look at them individually. Yeah, for sure this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, again, you're going to have some courses in there that aren't like super good comp courses per se. But at the same time, it's like the same thing. I think there's value in looking at Donald Ross tracks this week. Those also are all not the same to what we're looking at, just in terms of like the green. There's some similarities with green complexes and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like, Pinehurst #2 is a unique track. So I want to get just some bigger picture thoughts on who's performed well when the demand is the hardest, especially from a scoring standpoint. And I have some of those buckets like you were talking about in terms of you just kind of shorter term form. And that's where we are too. Next one is just tee to green last 12 months. So again, that's going to have some of the noisier stuff, because again, you're going to have some easier, but just I want a little bit of a big picture sense of just who my good golfers are, right? Like just in general, who typically from a tee to green standpoint is in the mix. Aaron Rye makes an appearance here in the top 3, which is really interesting to see. The game continues to trend upward. Bryson in here as well. Justin Thomas comes in here, which is interesting. Davis Thompson as well. Some interesting names. Keegan Bradley rounding out here the top 10. So some interesting names looking at just tee to green last 12 months. And to your point, tee to green 2024. So just this season, who's playing well. It gives me, again, a little bit of an understanding of that and who those people are. And again, here's the interesting point. Like, you can choose to weigh it as much as you'd like. Like, if you don't really want to spend a ton of time capturing data that has Craig Ranch, or looking last 12 months is going to have last year's John Deere or whatever it is, Detroit. If you don't want that information, you can kind of weigh it, put it in there if you want it or not. You can change the weight. It's the beauty of building the model. Messing around with the weights. Then I went off the tee, messed around with the last 18 months, looking at strokes gained off the tee when the missed fairway penalty is high. And again, that's what we have here. I think you were just going to have a very difficult time scoring if you were not putting yourself in position off the tee. Again, it's not because the rough is thick, but we are, it's 50-50 coin flip, right? You land in some of that wire grass, and you could have a shot. You could have rolled through and have like kind of something you could pick clean and get up onto the playing surface and run it up there. Or you could just be dead to rights and you have to just kind of chip out sideways and give yourself a shot. So that is a high penalty for missing the fairway, because that's going to happen to everyone at some point this weekend. Thoughts on kind of starting there off the tee?
So, yeah. And, when you talk about that, as with most great courses, the middle of the fairway generally isn't the best spot to drive the ball. And so here you actually want to, on numerous holes, you want to hit it close to the edges of the waist areas, because again, Donald Ross, as how he originally built this course, it's all about getting the proper angle to the green and giving yourself more options to play every hole. And so those guys who can, when you get into the wiregrass and the sandy waste areas, like you said, there's a lot of variance in there. You could have a perfect lie. You could have to chip out sideways. And so really the only way to avoid, this first obstacle off the tee is to just find guys who not just can hit fairways, but who can almost pick where they want to land their ball. And so, like we've talked about many times, distance from edge of the fairway kind of shows you which guys have complete control over their ball. And so even when they miss, they're only missing by a small margin. And so I think that's another another great angle to look at as well. And I think good drive percentage, something I'll do and something I pretty much do in every tough course is I'll set the approach to difficult. So we have an ability to go on there and look at very difficult approach courses. Obviously, this is going to be, one of the most difficult they're going to face maybe in their entire life. And so, I'll set it at that, and I'll look at good drive percentage. Even though it's an off the tee metric, it kind of combines both together, and I think ties them together in a great way. And so I'll definitely look at good drive percentage, and yeah, like look, distance is always beneficial. So yes, if you can find players who not only are accurate and can hit the ball where they want to, but can also push the ball up the fairways, because look, you want these greens are going to be bouncy, and so you want guys who are taking higher lofted irons as much as possible. And so I think a guy who's going to go and blast away off the tee, that's not someone you want here this week. You want someone who has complete control over their drives.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think I'd be interested to see if anyone wants to try it, just going against the grain in a way, like kind of like Karma. Karma was a little bit unique in terms of like just putting around the green, right? Can you do something a little bit different when everyone's hanging back or trying to do, fairway finding? Can you try to bludgeon the course like, Bryson did at Wingfoot? Just to, you know what, we're all in trouble if we miss. So I want to miss as far down as possible. I'll be interested to see if anyone takes a unique approach to that. So yeah, this takes a look here. I'm looking at what you asked, gaining on approach being difficult and very difficult, looking at good drive percentage over the last 12 months. Again, we have small sample of Rahm here, Scotty, Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka, Siwoo Kim right behind him. Interesting list, and not a bad way to look at it. Good drive percentage is I think a good stat this week. All right. I actually went off the tee, and then I did a kind of a hand build combination of total driving. I think total driving matters. Total driving is a combination stat of distance, rank, and accuracy rank. As Ron mentioned there, I believe that distance from the edge of the fairway is a better statistic than driving accuracy. So this is kind of a hand blended total driving that has a little bit of driving accuracy. Yes, I want to know that you're in the fairway. I want to give more weight to you being closer to the edge of the fairway, depending on where your misses are, so they're not as problematic. So as you can see here, familiar names in terms of driving distance, driving accuracy. Again, some good names there too. Some guys you see here at the top. Again, smaller sample for some of these guys. You see a lot of the live guys up there. Again, dealing with a little bit of a sample issue, and then distance from the edge of the fairway. Again, this is another spot where you look here. Yeah, we talk about Colin, like, oh, this is a great spot for Morikawa. He's accurate off the tee. Oh, Siwoo's accurate off the tee. Russell Henley's accurate off the tee. Number one in distance from the edge of the fairway, Scotty Scheffler. So, when we're trying to give other people credit for the skills that they have and why they'll be in play, the problem is that the best golfer in the world is also really, really good. And in some instances, even better than the rest of the field in that stat. So hybrid total driving is something that is just kind of screaming Scotty Scheffler again. The one that's interesting here, and again, it's a small sample still on the screen, Ty Hatton. So I understand why people would be interested in Hatton this week. This feels like the spot where this dude is going to lose his mind at some point. He is going to get behind or stuck in some wiregrass after hitting a drive that he thinks should be 350 down the middle that rolled through into the thick stuff. And he's just kind of in a bush and has nowhere to go. And he's going to eject. I don't know. I can't get into Hatton this week. I don't think he has the mental bandwidth to withstand this. So it might not be fair, but he runs too hot. And I think you're going to have to keep your composure this week because it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and let me just say this: I see another name on there. I don't know if you can pick him out, but another guy who gets really frustrated if things start going haywire, and he's been known to check out of tournaments when he hits balls in the water, and he is maturing. But Siwoo Kim is up there as well, who's another guy who you have to consider it this week. You have to consider guys and their mental makeups and how they react, and obviously we don't know all of them personally, but you can kind of get a glimpse of that when you watch them over the years, and so. I think you do really have to consider, how this course will mess with guys' minds and, how that will affect them, as they move forward.
Yeah. It's a thing, again, not something we can model. You know, I've used a picture of Siwoo Kim throwing a club as a article cover for in the past. Like there's plenty of that on the internet. We have Siwoo kind of losing his stuff before, but yeah, there's some other parts of it that make you think it's a great fit, just like Ty Hatton. There's some spots that you can think it's a really great fit for him, but I worry a little bit about those things. So those are interesting ones. Again, kind of a hybrid of you know, distance I think matters still. I don't want to not look at distance because, again, par 70, 7,500 yards. I think in your article you mentioned, like, from a like par to yardage standpoint, it's like the fifth longest course on tour, right? Like, you got to have distance.
Well, that includes majors too. Like, so this is the fifth longest course used period since 2015, and so yeah, I mean, it's a brute of a course. I mean, even when you look at the par fours, I mean, there's like 7 of them that are 480 plus. I mean, there's 3 of them over 500 yards, and so yeah, you're gonna have to, if you're not pushing the ball down the fairway, you can still have a chance, and you can still have other options and play the ground game, and you're going to get extra bounce on the fairways. So you're going to get some rollout. Obviously, you don't want to roll out into the waist areas. That's where the control part comes in, and shot shaping and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as we get into approach here, there's you're going to have to hit a lot of long irons, maybe the most on any course on tour.
Yep. Yeah. You're going to be far back, even if you are laying it out there a little bit. So approach is kind of captured in a few different ways. Last 24 rounds, last 6 months, and then overall proximity as well, just kind of capturing, trying to get a sense of approach, spreading it out, knowing that, I have a lot of tee to green in some other spots. So I don't want to go super heavy on approach again, because it is captured in a lot of other ways. So you probably have allocated roughly 40% on approach. Any other unique ways, Ron, that you'd want to look at approach this week? Again, probably, like, again, the spot you want to go heavy because it matters a ton.
Yeah. So like you'll hear all week about the shape of the greens and how they're crowned and, domed, the turtle shell. And, they, again, like precise approach play, I know we say that every week, but this week it's to the extreme. And again, many of these shots, are hitting the putting surface and they're trickling off. And so, there's, they joke, Bill Cord jokes about this, that, you don't really count the number of greens you hit, you count the number of greens that you visit, because, you could hit the green half the time and it's probably going to end up rolling off, or if you, put too much spin on the ball, and it rolls off the front. So you're going to have a lot of guys going back and forth, even when we get around the green with their pitch shots. Now, again, not a big, obviously with all these new analytics that we have, not a big, greens and regulation. But I think this is a week where if you look at other courses that are really difficult just to hit greens, and we do have that filter in the rabbit hole, and you just look at those courses, I think that does actually matter this week. Just can you find the green surface? And again, there's 6,500 square feet on average, so which is pretty much PGA Tour average. But again, when you have all these runoff areas and the way they're shaped, they're actually much smaller than that. So just being able to find the surface of the green, I think, is going to be so huge this week, where you can get out your putter for sure, and you don't even have to worry about, what type of shot am I going to hit here, just to try to scramble. And as we get into putting, this is where lag putting is another stat that will matter. But yeah, definitely. So look at GIR. I would also, pretty much, since we don't have any rough here, we have fairway approach accuracy, and so definitely looking at the buckets from 175 to 200 plus. I tried to calculate it. Probably around 55% of approaches are going to come from that 175 plus range, which is way over the tour average. And so, you're going to have wedges though as well, because, you're going to have a lot of these, only 2 par 5s, but with some of these just longer par 3 holes, you have all these longer par 4s. So kind of not really middle. What I'm trying to say is there's not going to be that many middle irons. And so looking at kind of both ends of the spectrum. And again, we have stuff on there if you want to just look at, I think fairway greens and reg percentage, getting real specific there. Guys who have proximity to the hole, from the fairway. So obviously, it's hard to model what's going to happen from the waist areas, because, those could be some really long shots as well. And guys are going to have to chip out some. But just overall, looking at, those range buckets and definitely GIR percentage. And again, like we did with good dry percentage, looking at obviously other courses that are very difficult to gain on approach.
Yeah, good call. Again, can be overwhelming because you have access to all of this data and how, what do you count? How do you weigh it? How does it spread? Like the approach bucket thing is always very challenging to me because it's like, all right, in a normal setting, where's, if I just, I'm giving a blanket weight for 175 to 200. And I think Bryson's like shot distribution from that range is going to look different than say, Russell Henley, right? Like the number of shots. So like I have to give it a set weight across the entire model. And that becomes a little bit challenging. Now I think it's useful to look at because when you start to think like, okay, just going to walk through it and thinking, all right, Bryson's distance, Brooks distance, Scotty distance, these guys might be a little bit different in terms of 175 to 200, where Colin might be 205 for Colin. If it's, 185 for Bryson. So maybe I want to look at that. So it's a little bit harder to model, but I think it's definitely interesting to look at. We have access to, again, both fairway and rough, looking at that too. All right. Around the green stuff. Last couple that I have here, scrambling short grass. I think obviously we have no rough. We have no thick aprons. There's, I think, a few different ways to go out and do it, but you have to have it this week. Scrambling on short grass is going to matter. You can look at just scrambling in general, but I think, the short stuff is something we want to highlight here, Ron.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is obviously approach is always key, but if you can at least survive with your, around the green play and, survive with your scrambling skills, it's going to be a long week. So I think there's a variety of ways, to look at this. Obviously, you could look at other courses difficult around the green. As we all know, this is a short grass course. There is no rough around the course. So focusing on guys who are really skilled in this area. And again, we do have the option of the rabbit hole where you can look at other courses that are, going to be, obviously nothing's going to compare necessarily to Pinehurst. Even when you look at comp courses, you can see some right away, Augusta National, Congaree, I think fits very well. And there's a few others, but yeah, just the scrambling from short grass bucket kind of isolates all the courses that are difficult when you get into short grass that's hard to chip from. A lot of obviously amateurs struggle with this, and some PGA Tour players aren't the best at it as well. And so it's just really interesting, digging into the numbers of certain guys who really struggle. I was just looking, a guy like a Tom Hoge who's way down the field on these types of surfaces, trying to chip from. So, yeah, I think around the green proximity is another great, when you look at it from a difficult course standpoint, it just kind of shows you which players get it closer to the hole. Now, probably getting a lot of rough mixed in with that. So, I would focus mostly on from the short grass for sure this week.
This one stood out to me over the weekend. I think it will fly in the face of a lot of things you're going to hear this week. These Victor Hovland numbers are interesting, right? The thought is like, oh, Vic is just absolutely abysmal on the short stuff. You want him in where it's nice and thick. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be the case. Now, again, scrambling has a putting element to it for sure. But, and again, the around the green stuff in general here for Vic is big, bold, and red. It's not been great. And again, it's, back with Joe Mayo as his coach. And I think that can, be on the up and up and changing. But again, the numbers are the numbers, presented without any more commentary than that, other than just like careful of some of the narratives you're going to be fed this week in terms of, how players perform when they don't have access to that data. And we have access to the data and it looks a little different than what they're saying. I did putting here. I just took a look at, again, Bermuda. That's been a change here since the last time we were here. Looked at bogey avoidance. Again, those are kind of, just the scoring ones. I don't typically look at putting very much, but I think, that want to capture it a little bit here. You just have some, I think we see enough of it to get an understanding of, who performs well in those scenarios. Obviously, bogeys are inevitable this week, but you want to avoid them as much as possible. And I put a little bit of Apex height in here. I think reading and hearing a little bit more about it, having the advantage of being able to have high ball flight to be able to land a little bit softer will probably help you hold a little bit more, a few more greens here this week. So I gave that just a smidge in the model this week here. And again, just to show you, to wrap it up, it is not super surprising at the top with Scotty, Rory, and Xander's your top three. So what other, just to wrap up in the last 60 seconds here. So any other stats or anything else you want to highlight that we should be kind of looking at modeling wise?
So I'm looking at from scoring. I think it's very important this week to look at birdie or better. Now, there's not going to be many birdies this week, okay? So let's not kid ourselves. But still, looking at that and bogey avoidance from a difficult course perspective. So that, and then, I think with 12 par fours, and again, these par fours are massive. We have the ability to look at other par fours that are difficult on tour, and so you can look at that filter as well. Obviously, only 2 par 5, so those are really the two, as is the case usually, the easiest holes on the course. And then I think putting. I think there's some interesting ones you could look into just with the difficulty of lag putting here. Like I know going back to 2014, I know these were bent greens then, but the 3-putt percentage was over 5%, and so there's not many courses you even get close to that number on tour, and so I think lag putting, and we have a stat called approach putt performance, which is actually lag putting, and it's really interesting when you look at the top of those rankings, and you see guys like Scotty Scheffler's high up there. He's a great lag putter. Will Zalatoris, good lag putter. So that's just another thing to kind of look at, and maybe you don't want to model that. But I just think if you're looking at, I like to build a putting model where I kind of combine different elements together. And so the ability to do that with the rabbit hole is just amazing to kind of look at those from a more detailed perspective.
Yeah. Head over to betspertsgolf.com, get a subscription, join us, try it for a week, try it for a month, try us for the rest of the summer. Again, you can see here on the site, if you go to betspertsgolf.com, how to access it for cheap through our partners. Maybe you already have an Underdog account. Maybe your spouse or friend or significant other needs an Underdog account. Try it out. Take advantage. Use promo code BetspertsGolf. You can do the same thing over at Vivid Picks. DFS Pick'em sites, parlay sites for you to hang out with us and get access to all the articles, all the content, our Discord where all the official picks are put out, along with the rabbit hole, which you just saw. We have some other cool, awesome tools. Our DFS optimizer, it's fantastic. In tournaments, pre-tournament matchups, we have a tool that you can pump in the price and see all those things. Fantastic ways for you to bet and speculate on this lovely game that we get to watch this weekend at one of our country's best tracks, Pinehurst number 2. Again, you cannot be more excited. Like if you read Ron's preview over on the site, so go ahead and check that out. So appreciate you hanging out with us. Subscribe to the YouTube channel before you take off. We'll be back on Tuesday for a more extensive betting show. Ron and Byron Model Maniac will be here on Wednesday for the DFS show. So we appreciate you very much. Subscribe before you